In this video, I'm going to talk to you about my experience using the brand new G-Series lenses that Reeflex sent me about a week ago. Now, this is not a review of the lenses because these are mid-stage pre-production models. So it wouldn't be fair really to kind of pixel peep and tell you the good and the bad of these lenses because I know for a fact they're actually getting even better in time for their launch. But my point is that I got these lenses and I put them to use. Now, before we dive in, I just want to give you kind of my mindset around this of why I'm so excited about these kinds of lenses. And it starts with this device. So if you were to be asked, what is that device? What is this thing right here? You'd probably say, well, it's a smartphone. And the funny thing is that for me and for a bunch of other photographers I know, this is more like a smart camera that we occasionally use to make phone calls and text people or browse social media. But primarily, this is our camera device. I'm looking at specifically my buddy Ron Polk, and you should definitely check out his YouTube channel called The Smart Wood Shop. I'll link to it right here. Point is that Ron's one of those guys that actually made the full switch, got rid of his Sony gear, and is focusing specifically on his iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is what this device is. Now, the reason why I'm so excited about products like the G-Series lenses by Reeflex is this. When the iPhone 13 Pro was upgraded to the iPhone 14 Pro, there was one significant improvement, and that had to do with sensor size. Year over year, optics would get improved, you get wider apertures, and sensors would get better. But from the 13 to the 14, we went from a 12 megapixel sensor to a 48 megapixel sensor. And that improvement carried over to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, with the Max getting an even longer telephoto range at 120 millimeter equivalent. But the thing is that for me and for a lot of other photographers that I know, we really want to spend our time in that main sensor, main lens mode, which is the 24 millimeter equivalent, because that gives us the opportunity to get the full 48 megapixel data. Granted, it's at ProRAW, which is using Apple's photonics engine and is technically a processed RAW file, but still, all of that pixel information is great for a bunch of reasons. Now, I'm going to do a whole separate video on the differences between ProRAW and RAW. I just wanted to throw it in there. Let me tell you a little bit about my experiences using these G-Series lenses. The biggest reason why I'm a big fan of these lenses is because it allows me to take advantage of the main 48 megapixel sensor and adapt my focal length optically in some standard ways and also some very creative ways. Now, in terms of how I use these lenses as part of my testing, at the time that I recorded this video, there was not an iPhone 15 Pro Max case ready. However, I did use my wife's iPhone 13 Pro, and I had a case for that. Now, the way that you use these lenses is you put the case on your phone, and then you choose the lens that you want to use, and you just screw it on. And I actually prefer this mount method better than some other companies that use a bayonet style, because when you screw the lens on, I mean, you know that it's firmly seated. It's not going to twist or pop off. That little peace of mind really, I don't know, it's just an extra little thing that I like. And then in terms of construction, I mean, I remember when I first took the lenses out of the package when it was sent to me, I was genuinely shocked. Like, these are substantial lenses. In fact, I even messaged that to the company. I told them, these are some of the most substantial mobile lenses I've ever held. They are solid metal. The glass is huge. It's very high quality optics, and you really want that. The reason why, especially if you're using one of the newer iPhones, the 14 Pro or the 15 Pro, because now with these larger sensors, you want to make sure that these lenses that you add on can properly resolve to the whole sensor. The older lenses that have been available for years, one, you might get some vignetting because the onboard lenses on your iPhone are getting wider and larger, but also two, those sensors are getting larger and you need lenses that will allow more light to cover the full range of the sensor. The other thing that I absolutely love about this system, it's actually quite innovative, is that they have implemented what they call ReeMag, which is their magnetic system to attach lens caps and filters. So all you need to do is just put the filter to the front of the lens or the lens cap and it just snaps on. And you can even stack filters together. And to me, that's just one of the coolest parts of this lens system. So right off the bat, here are the 6 lenses that make up the G-Series lenses by Reeflex. First, you've got the telephoto lens. It allows me to double my focal length on the main lens Then there are two macro lenses. The first one is a long range macro, which gives you a minimum focus distance of 7 centimeters. And I find that to be a little bit more forgiving if you're just getting into macro photography with your iPhone. But then there is a short range macro lens, which has a minimum focus distance of 1 centimeter. So that lets you get really close up. Next, there's the wide angle lens, which gives you the equivalent of an 18 millimeter focal length, and that you would put on top of the 24 millimeter lens, which is the main sensor. Now, this is something that I'm also a big fan of because 24 millimeters is just a weird focal length for me. It's okay, but generally I want to get a little bit wider. And here's the thing. I know that I have an ultra wide lens on the iPhone, but I have never been a big fan of it. It's kind of a novelty and I've had fun with it, but truthfully, I tend to avoid it. And I usually only stick between the main camera and the telephoto lens because those are where I typically live with my photos. But being able to get a little bit wider at an 18 millimeter equivalent, that to me is a welcome addition. Again, because I can put it on the main lens and the main sensor, I can use the full 48 megapixels. And then if you want to get really fun and creative, there is a fisheye lens, which will give you an 8 millimeter equivalent. This is a dangerous lens to use. Many times I've caught my fingers in the frame because it's so wide. You can almost like look behind you, but it is a very fun lens and it does let you get some unique compositions. And the thing is, compared to the native onboard ultra wide angle lens, I'd rather use this fisheye lens. I'll get that same ultra wide look, maybe even a little bit wider. But again, I'm using the main 48 megapixel sensor this time, and the optics on that are also improved. And then finally, we've got the 1.33x anamorphic lens. Now, anamorphic is something more for videographers, people who like to create a lot of video, and then you get that really cinematic aspect ratio, that ultra wide aspect ratio. But the other cool thing is you get these beautiful lens flares that if you use them sparingly, they can be very cool. Now, I've actually used this lens for photography. It required me to open the photo in Photoshop, and then I just ran an action that I created to de-squeeze, essentially take it from a 4:3 aspect ratio to the correct aspect ratio of anamorphic. And so it does allow you to get these cool ultra wide aspect ratios for your photos, but it requires a little bit of extra work, at least for now, if you're shooting in RAW as opposed to JPEG. So again, I really do think this is the future of photography, or at the very least, the future of mobile photography. Yes, we have multiple lenses and multiple sensors on our phones, but at the end of the day, at least for me, I want to stick with the best and largest sensor that I have available. And I'd rather use these external lenses and I'd rather adapt the focal length with those lenses rather than have to rely on these other ultra wide and telephoto lenses with the smaller sensors. But at the end of the day, when I did my testing using the iPhone 13 Pro, I only put the lenses on top of the main sensor. I didn't use any of the other lenses. If you want to learn more about how to edit your photos on your mobile devices, check this video out. If this video was helpful to you and you learned something from it, I would love it if you hit the thumbs up button and of course, click on subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of all future videos. Thanks a lot.